Well, thank you for coming and listening to the Human Resource. I've got a topic today that we have never touched on, and I'm almost embarrassed to say that we have never talked about body language. I know it's not a law, it's not a regulation. I'm going a little out of the box, but now think about some of the things that we've been talking about this past year. And if we tie some of this all together, you're going to realize that when we talk about emotions in the workplace, when we talk about enabling our employees to do certain things that they shouldn't be doing, body language is something that we should also be talking about in regards to how we manage people. And I've got two books here. Again, you know how I just absolutely love reading, but Julius Fast wrote Body Language. And then I also have Alan and Barbara Pease, The Definitive Book of Body Language. And what's interesting about these two books is, and these are just two of my body language books, but um, they're entirely different in the way they approach this topic. But they gave me enough to think about that I put together 5 specific things I want you to start thinking about in this next year about how you communicate, how you engage, and then how do you lead and manage your teams through body language. So, the first one I want you to think about, and again, what are we trying to do? We're trying to come up with ways to nurture and grow trust, develop and again, exhume confidence so that people will feel comfortable following us, listening to us, coming and confiding in us. But we also want to have a very positive and approachable demeanor so that people, again, will come and know to partner with us and feel comfortable doing so, whether it's an employee, a director, an owner. If we are exhuming our own body language, then we're starting with the very first part of this whole program. So, the one I want you to consider first is space. And that is a part of body language. Where are you in relationship to the individuals that you work with? And I'm going to go as far as to say, where is your office space? Where are you positioned? When I walk into a company, I'm always looking to see, well, who's in the front of the building, who's in the back of the building, who's on the upper floors versus the lower floors. How often are those individuals coming out of their space? Are they walking into other people's space? Are they grouping together or are they talking on the phone? How are you utilizing space? Have you ever been in a group and you know exactly what's going to happen? That person's going to kind of hover on the outside, on the perimeter, and they may not stay in one place. They might just kind of shift and change. They're normally standing. And then you've got the other individual that's right up next to you. They may be leaning in on you. They're laughing and giggling. They want to be the center of attention. Think about what those two people are saying with their use of space. Think about where they sit in meetings. Have you walked into a room, a conference room or a meeting room, and been able to read the level of engagement or the level of interest of the people in that room just by where they sit? Now, it's inevitable when I give a presentation that I only end up with about 5 people in the front row and everybody else goes to row like 3, 4, and 5 or whatever it is. If it's an auditorium, they're all at the top and I only have just a handful down at the lower end. But what people are saying with that is that they're not real sure what to expect, so they're going to keep that safe distance from the speaker, or they're going to keep that safe space between me and them. And when we're in a conference room, if you're leading that particular meeting, where are you sitting? How are you projecting your position or your authority? And I always, it just amazes me the number of leaders when they're going to lead a meeting and they sit in like on the middle or on the side of the table, the long table, instead of sitting at the head of the table. All of this sends a huge message to everyone else in the room. But more importantly, it should be sending a message to you. How about space with handshakes? Have you noticed the people who shake your hand one way and then pat you on the shoulder with the other hand? Have you ever noticed the people who give you the soft handshakes? Have you noticed the people who don't let go? And all of this is body language. All of this is sending you those unspoken messages. It's funny. Someone looked at me, and maybe I've mentioned this on the show before, but someone once mentioned actions speak louder than words, Pandy. And I believe that. I completely believe it. What she was saying was, I'm watching what everybody's doing, and they say one thing, but they don't do it. They don't follow through with it. And that means a lot to me. And I thought, wow, it should, because it's very telling. So from an HR perspective, how am I going to address individuals who aren't showing the correct body language? Number two, are you watching facial expressions? And with that, I'm gonna tie in, and it really isn't a direct connection, but if you're watching facial expressions, are you also watching eye contact? I have a 4-year-old grandson, and I am teaching him now as a 4-year-old to give people eye contact, look them in the eye, shake their hand. It's wonderful to meet you, Mrs. Wheeler. It's wonderful to meet you, Mrs. Green. As a 4-year-old, that's very impressive. But do you know how many individuals we have in the workplace who can't do that? And what is that telling us? Are you doing that to them? Are you giving them eye contact? One of the biggest faux pas I have with leaders is they call somebody in for a one-on-one, and instead of sitting there and being present, they're sitting to the side, they're working on their computer, and they're staring off out the window or out the screen. What does that tell the employee? What is that? What message is that sending the employee in how your body language is telling them, yeah, you're here, but I'm not really here with you. One of the things, and I think it was Julius who put a lot of emphasis on smiles, and they both mentioned it. But smiling, just that simple movement of your face when you walk through the building, when you don't even have to speak to somebody, and if you're smiling at them, what does that do? What message does that send? And what about when you're not sincere? What do you do when you've got somebody who's looking at you and you know they're not sincere because they're giving you the, yeah, okay, thank you so much. And you know full well they're turning around and thinking, oh, I did not want to be there. I did not want to hear that. I'm not happy. The body language that we can control, so simple, but sometimes our face gives us away, doesn't it? How about number 3, your posture? How many times have you sat down with an employee and they just slump down in the chair, or they're sitting there and they're sitting sideways? They look like that's the last place they want to be. Or take the employee that's leaning in and listening to every word you have to say. They're nodding their head. They're sitting center in their chair. They might even have their hands across as if they're thinking with you. Posturing. Actually, posturing includes going back to that conference table. Where are you posturing in regards to everybody else? Are you sitting in a position where you see everybody else? When you have a witness with an investigation or in a conference, and they're only to be there, are they posturing over in a corner so that they're not a part of the main conversation? Are they posturing so that they're not going to infringe or put somebody on the defensive? All of this matters. How about number 4? Where are your arms? Where are their arms? Alan and Barbara did a really good job breaking down the different signals that we can get from individuals in regards to their comfort zone with that conversation. If somebody's sitting there fiddling and twisting and kind of straightening, it's funny. There's a late night show, and the guy will come out and do his monologue, and he has this one gesture that he does over and over, and I don't even listen to his monologue anymore. I'm counting how many times he has straightened himself and grabbed himself, and it's like, holy goodness, you are so nervous being out there, and yet you want everybody to think you're in full control, but yet your body's telling me you're not. What messages are you sending? What messages are your employees sending to you? Are they blocking their bodies? Are they blocking their faces? Are they, tightening their arms in front of themselves? Do they have fists gripped? This is all stuff that's important during a corrective action, because if you're seeing these defensive or these insecure actions, you know that they may not even be listening to you, or you know that you don't have somebody who's buying into what you're asking. And that's a meeting, it's an engagement that's not going to be successful. You're going to have bigger complications, bigger conversations following that, because the individual's not receptive to what's going on. And then number 5, start listening for the pitch and the volume of somebody's voice. Now, we all know the person who likes to laugh all the time. Okay, we get that. But what about the person who, I was in a meeting the other day, and this individual we had changed her position, and we were talking about all the other restructuring that was going to go on in the company, and all the senior leaders were around the conference table. And when she talked, she began to doing this, and she just started wringing her hands, and there was no straight eye contact. We could hear the emotion in her voice. Her eyes started blinking over and over again. And I just wanted to grab her and say, take a breath. Everything's going to be okay. But I couldn't tell, and her business coach was sitting there listening to the whole thing. So I knew he would take care of it. But she told us so much in just her body language, not in the words. I think everybody just lost what she was saying in terms of the words. It was her body posture. It was her voice. It was the pitch and volume of her voice that told us volumes. So, and I know that all of you have meetings on a regular basis, and all of you are trying to deal with change. But take some of these thoughts and apply them over the next couple months. Send me in some feedback on what body language you're starting to see, what body language you're starting to notice. Oh, and by the way, the 0 point of body language is when the head is balanced, face is forward, arms are at the side, and legs are together. Anything away from that is telling and talking. It's showing you something in regards to body language. And remember, there are 30 traditional American gestures, according to Dr. Shefflin, as you will read in the body language book by Julius Fast. We should know them all, among all the other things we have to know. Body language is fun. Use it all the time. Thanks for coming. And we hope to have you back here at the Human Resource.